Hello and welcome to Access Sportsnet. Lakers, driven by your Southern California Honda dealers. I'm Chris McGee. I got Robert Horry, James Worthy, Mike Bresnahan. Allie Clifton's going to join us in a little bit. The Lakers fall in the opener again. They haven't won on opening night since 2016, back when they beat James Harden and the Rockets. They get a great offensive performance from LeBron and AD, but that's not enough. Big collapse defensively. Westbrook struggles in debut, and the Warriors win the fourth, James, 38-29. So the Lakers give up 38 in that decisive fourth quarter. Yeah,
did a lot of it, most of it, without Curry on the floor. In fact, I thought one of the only bright spot I took from the game tonight was the job that Bazemore did. His energy on Curry from the beginning, I think, disrupted him from the beginning. But there's another guy named Poole who just, disrupted and destroyed the Lakers. Now we see, that what they've been doing in practice has nothing to do with what goes on in the game. So all that talk about preseason and stuff, they needed to be working on some stuff. And they still have some stuff to work on because they didn't look together. It didn't look like what they've been practicing on even was there defensively. Forget about the offense. Defensively, they just couldn't get the rotations right. Golden State got a ton of three-point shots. And so it's only one game. They got 81 more, but we have to judge what we saw tonight. And they got some work to do. And I think it's expected. Still a lot of new faces, still a lot of new players. We're not giving them a pass, but they got to work on some stuff. Golden State worked on the preseason, and they showing that it's paying off. So, they got some work to do.
James mentioned Jordan Poole. He had 20 points. He hit 4 threes. Steph just 5 of 21, 2 for 8. Brez and I were talking while we were watching the game, especially with Clay missing time. Jordan Poole can be a guy that'll be mentioned early on, at least for most improved player. I mean, he is fantastic, and he came out ready to go. Rob, your take on what we saw tonight?
Well, it boils down to their bench outplaying our bench. I think their bench had 50-plus points.
55-29.
55-29, and that's a huge role because if you look at our bench, you think what we have coming off Malik Monk. I know we mentioned THT and some other guys, but you got Malik Monk, you got
Kendrick Nunn out.
Kendrick Nunn's out. You got 7 out there. So there's a lot of guys on the bench that they came out and did more. So if you watch this whole game, and I'm sitting there saying, okay, what kind of flow does the Lakers have? The flow to me just wasn't good. When you have that much talent, you should use the talent appropriately. It's like, okay, who's going to go now? Am I going to go or are you going to go? They look very confused on the offense. I know it's easy to say, okay, it works in practice. Practice is not the game. And that's something I've been harping on from day one, that you need to get in games against people who are playing defense differently than the way you play defense. And the way that the Warriors played tonight was awesome. And this is why they're going to be one of the best teams in the West. They moved the basketball. I mean, the ball was moving so fast that I got confused sometimes. And that's how you have to play on a team. The ball doesn't stick in anybody's hand. And you look at the Lakers, they have 2 guys that the ball sort of sticks. That's LeBron and Westbrook. And the best thing that coaches from day one have said, you cannot outrun the basketball. And so when the basketball is moving like that, it's hard for the defense to keep up. And that's how basically how the Warriors beat us, because the ball was popping tonight.
30 assists for the Warriors, 21 for the Lakers. Lakers did shoot 47% from the field. They did score 114 points. They shot 35% from 3, but defensively, Brez, the collapse, especially in that third quarter. Listen, they were up 10 with 2 minutes and 24 seconds left in that third. Golden State goes on a 24-6 run.
Yeah, you nailed it. I mean, a couple things we're going to be looking at the entire season: Laker perimeter defense and Laker chemistry on offense. First 3 quarters tonight, I thought they were good in both ends. Held Golden State to 27% from three-point range. Going into that fourth quarter, that fell apart. As you mentioned, Poole got hot, and that was that as far as a good perimeter defense. Chemistry on offense, Russ didn't fit in tonight, guys. I don't think there's any denying that. Frank Vogel did say yesterday after practice there's a lot of newness on this team. He was definitely preaching big picture patience. That was the phrase that he used. So you're going to have to give this time to kind of gel. You see the numbers right there. Obviously not the way that Russ wanted to start his homecoming with his Lakers here. But I feel like the chemistry was good on offense through 3 quarters, not necessarily involving Russ. but they were pushing the ball, they were scoring, they were hitting their threes, and that also fell apart in that fourth quarter.
Yeah, I mean, we had two players in double figures tonight.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think you got to get more diversity in scoring. I think, LeBron had the ball a lot, like Rob said, and there wasn't just enough ball movement. I know we got some players out, Tucker, none, but we have to become more versatile than I think we are. I mean, if we're going to depend on AD and LeBron to kind of get it done, and I know we aren't, we won't do that. It's just one game. But what we saw tonight was a snapshot of kind of, what we've known them to be. Yeah, they played good. They were up 10. The inability to hold on to that lead, the defense is what we all talk about, is what they need to hang their hats on. And, defense and the lack of ball movement, like Rob said, I mean, it cost them tonight.
A lot of guys are huge on the plus minus, and we're not going to talk about Westbrook's minus, but if you look and you talk about Bazemore, you had to have guys with the energy that's going to come out and play this game defense. Vogel talks about defense. Bazemore was a guy that gave him a lot of energy on defense. And you got to get those other guys involved. When you know you're still rolling, you got to get them guys going.
So you see the numbers there. Our graphics producer, Andrew Miller, he's a Warriors fan, by the way, so we're not talking to him right now. But 67-47, you see that AD and LeBron compared to the rest of the team. Field goal percentage, 57% to 37% from 3, 6 of 16. The rest of the team, 9 for 26. AD and LeBron offensively, yes, that is a great sign. Definitely the Lakers lacking, looking for that third, fourth option on a night like tonight. So that is a struggle. But I do want to talk about Russell Westbrook. Brez, you started kind of that ball rolling. The Lakers were, minus 21, I think, in the 30 minutes that he played. Frank talked about patience, talked about guys having to fit in. All of last year, I think it's 62, 65 games. Russ was in single digits one time. So tonight, his debut in a Laker uniform, he's 8 points, really 6. 2 of those were layup at the end. Tough to find the rhythm, Rob, tough to kind of fit in. Here's the thing, we've talked about it a lot of times on this air, he's a guy that's used to having the basketball and making things happen and going in the pick and roll. He didn't really have that many opportunities in the pick and roll tonight. He was off ball a little bit. So I think that's where the patience comes in. They are going to have to figure that part out. Russell Westbrook's line is not going to be 8, 4, and 4 the entire year. I promise all of you. I promise you, it's probably going to go up to 18, 7, and 7. It's going to go up, but it's going to take some time, and there might be some frustrating moments.
It's going to be a lot of frustrating moments because right now I can tell you the guy that's most upset right now is him because this is his debut, and this is not who Russ is. This is not indicative of how he plays. If you watch Russ in any game, he plays with a lot more energy. He didn't have that energy. I didn't see him going downhill like you normally see him when he was on other teams. And things like that, you have to say, okay, Russ, I know you want to get everybody involved, but sometimes you need to be that down, and you can't have that with Westbrook. You got to fill the lanes there's no tomorrow. And I think with Westbrook, that's what's slowing him down. He's trying to think too much and just letting the game come to him.
Yeah, the game's not a thinking game, especially with him. I don't think he's been on teams where they've had other superstars, but AD and LeBron are different. So he doesn't get what he was getting in Washington or in Houston, where he had the ball a lot. They're going to have to figure out a way to include him with the ball in his hand. I also think they got to come up with some kind of motion. I say this every year. They got to come up with something that moves the defense. If the defense is just sitting there watching, LeBron or, maybe they're going to ISO AD, I like that from time to time, but in clutch situations, they really need to make the defense work a little bit more. But I think I'm not worried about Russ. I think he'll find a way. I think the coaching staff will find a way. They got, like Rob said, no fast break. They got to find a way to put the ball in his hands sometime when LeBron's in the game. And I think LeBron's smart enough to see that as well. So we'll see. 81 more games. We'll see.
I'm going to say this because I know everyone's frustrated, and we're really talking about that final quarter. The Lakers were up 84-74 with a couple minutes left in the third, and they were playing with a great pace. They were playing well on both sides of the ball, and AD and LeBron looked great, and it flipped.
Yeah,
and that's the game.
They were that close to an opening night win.
Yeah, and so that's where the frustrations come in. But there's definitely you got something to say, Rob?
No, I just when to me, and I'm gonna be honest, the game flipped because LeBron and AD were taking all the shots, and now you got down the stretch where they started, locking in on those two guys. Yeah. The other guys was like, okay, what am I gonna do? You've been taking all the shots, you're hot. They weren't involved, and that goes to what James said. You need some ball movement. You need some guys doing something different. And when we have a tendency to watch, as basketball players, we're no good. That's why one of the things I know this is old school and doesn't really apply to today's game, and that's what the thing about the triangle, guys were constantly moving. That was the thing about, I hate to say the name, but the Sacramento Kings offense, the guys were always moving. Yeah, when guys are moving like that, it's hard for the defense to watch them because, matter of fact, just go watch, watch in the second half, watch how Golden State played. They were
especially
everywhere.
In that fourth quarter, man.
They were in 100%. The paint. Bigs were outside, bigs were inside, and they were moving. And if you watch the Lakers, it was like, okay, LeBron's going to be there, AD's going to be there, and everybody's going to be here. You knew exactly what it was going to be, like James said, and there was no movement. You got to have some movement.
I mean, usually it's a three with the shot clock running down. You're not forcing the issue. You're not getting to the line like you should. Sometimes you get an old-fashioned three.